everyone is speaking out about this as Nick Wright made a crazy accusation against Jalen Green, comparing him to another NBA player that he labels as not a winning player. We talk about it all here on Rockets Digest and break down the latest. We appreciate you joining us. If you're new here, and we've got a lot of you, hit the subscribe button for daily Rockets updates, news, and more. We've got so much coming, and we're happy that you are joining us. Make sure you're subscribed along. Let's talk about it. Nick Wright made this accusation about Jalen's underwhelming playoff performance, and this has been a long-standing opinion that Nick Wright has had, saying that Jalen Green is not a star, is not a guy that should be heralded in the NBA as a top player, and they think, or rather he thinks, that if the Rockets want to go to the next level, that maybe Jalen Green is not the guy to have on the roster, and that leads us to a slew of different questions. So I'm just going to let Nick Wright speak for himself. I'm not going to put any words in his mouth. We're going to go quote for quote on what Nick Wright said about Jalen Green as we enter into it here. First thing we have, quote, "The conversations you're having about Jalen Green in the offseason are conversations with other GMs where he is part of a package you're trading for a true scorer or a true star," end quote. Couple of different things I don't like in that aspect. The first one being that he claims that Jalen Green is not a true star / a true scorer. Yes, the first postseason for him was very rough. It was not a great postseason. When you look at the stats, which we'll get into in just a moment, it is not what you'd expect from a high caliber player in the NBA. However, at the same time, it was also his first postseason. He's 23 years old. He is going to get better and better every single year, and I expect him to be really one of the top players in the NBA for the next 5, 6, 7, maybe even 10 years. I mean, he is so young. And yes, the postseason went great, but the regular season speaks for itself, which is where we continue on with this story. So Nick Wright says, "Listen, I have never been a Jalen Green believer, and he felt to me like your ceiling is Zach LaVine. And I don't know that Zach LaVine is a winning player," end quote. What did he just compare Jalen Green to? Now, don't get me wrong, Zach LaVine is a great basketball player, and I want to try and put these stats 2 and 2 together here in just a moment. But the fact of the matter is, Jalen Green at 23 years old is way better than what Zach LaVine was in his first couple seasons. And that's where I want to try to look at these stats. So we have to look at, obviously, the entire career stats of Zach LaVine. He's saying the ceiling is Zach LaVine. That's what he's saying, which in that aspect, we're going to take the best season that Zach LaVine has ever had, which we go to Chicago in 2020, 2021, where he had a 27.4 average. His free throw percentage was up. Pretty much all his overall numbers were up. He had a 41% three-point percentage that year. That is going to lead to, obviously, more points per game, which was very clear. The numbers, though, that I want you to take a look at and be very, very specific here as we look up here. 10 points in his first year per game. 14 points per game in his second year. 18.9 points per game in his third year. 16.7 in his fourth year. Whereas Jalen Green, and we look at his seasons, this is his first 4 years. He's 23 years old. He came into the NBA as basically a teenager. 17.3. 10.1. 22.1 in his second season. 14 points. 19.6 points per game in last year, where he played all 82 games for the first time ever. 18.9. A little closer there. But then the fourth season, where, yes, the regular season was great, the postseason won 21 points per game, and Zach LaVine, 16.7. You want to say his ceiling is Zach LaVine? Say what you want to say, Nick Wright. I understand that you have a business and you got to make these hard takes. But saying that Jalen Green is not a star player, that he is not a top scorer, is an outlandish thing to say and should really not be a topic of discussion at all. I mean, granted, his points this year were pretty dang good in the regular season. 21 points per game. Obviously, the rebounds and all that other stuff were there. But his threes, his assists, he was very much a threat when he was on the court. And I remind people that when you look at this season and you look at Jalen Green's stats, he played all 82 games. Fred VanVleet didn't do that. He got injured. Jabari Smith didn't do that. He got injured. Amen Thompson didn't do that. He didn't play all 82 games. Alperen Şengün, he didn't do that. Jalen Green was a night in, night out guy. And maybe he shouldn't be in some aspects. Maybe you let him rest. And yeah, he did play in those Final Four games when he didn't need to, but in some aspects, he wanted to keep the positive momentum going. That was, I'm not going to say an Ime Udoka thing. It was a Jalen Green type thing. And so it's just a whole slew of things that we have to look at with this. And the points per game to me alone just show that it's very much not indicative of what his playoff series really was. Obviously, you take out game 2 where he had 30-plus points. This was his stats in the 7-game series. So take away one game, 6-game series, 9.1 points per game, 5.6 rebounds per game, which, again, was more than he was averaging. But the numbers that, I'm not going to say scare me, but aren't great considering his percentages were actually one of the higher marks for the Rockets. 31% from the field is not great. 19% from 3 is horrible. And 63% from the free throw line is also just overall not what you want from a star player. And I understand that. But the thing is, Jalen Green has been not liked by Nick Wright for a long time. And that's why I want to go into another quote here by Nick Wright, where he basically states, again, it's his first playoff series, but this series felt like you cannot trust him at all. It's now in his last 10 games, 7 were single figures, 1 was 38, and the 2 double-figure games were like 11 and 12 points. So, like, that's a horrific closing push to the season, and then obviously the playoffs. Did he have a great end of the season? No. But what he is not taking into account here, those final 4 games, he's taken 7 games. 3 of those games were in the regular season. Those 3 games, Jalen Green did not need to play. He played because he wanted to play all 82 games. The Rockets had already clinched the 2 seed. There was no reason to play that game, and Nick Wright is taking stats that do not matter. He played for like 15 minutes in those games. It makes no sense when you have a guy like this with national media coverage, and he is able to spill out stuff like this. It's dumb. It's flat out dumb to scrutinize a 23-year-old guy for, yes, having a bad playoff series. He'll tell you that. He knows he did that. But to gloop in those last 3 games, which he didn't have to play, he wanted to play, and the Rockets had already secured the 2 seed, so it didn't matter, is now a outlandish thing to put on there and say to the public eye. Crazy. Absolutely crazy. And again, the playoff stats are what they are. I get it. I understand. But the fact of the matter is, we're having a lot of talks about if it's time to trade Green. And don't get me wrong, I've been putting in those talks too. Because when you have a bad playoff series, that's what's going to be talked about in the national media. But it's just really hard for me to look at this and see the people talking out about Jalen Green in a way that basically makes him look like he was not a star for the Houston Rockets this year. He was. He was 100% a star for the Houston Rockets, and that's where one of a former NBA player, a 3-time sixth man, came in and defended Jalen Green for a lot of way. Lou Williams, he had this in response to Nick Wright, saying, quote, "Imagine if the Lakers turned their back on Kobe when he played how he played against the Utah Jazz, when he was such a young player. Like, you go out there and you have your experiences and your ups and downs, you wipe yourself off, and you go on the summer and make adjustments. How can you be a better basketball player?" And that's the thing Nick Wright is not taking into account. Jalen Green played in his first playoff series. It was not great. But he had played all 82 games for 2 straight seasons. He was labeled as a top NBA young player. He is labeled as the Rockets' top scorer. And maybe that's where there's too much pressure on him. That could be for 100% real argument. But the whole outlandish thing is that Nick Wright has always had it out for Jalen Green and is finding stats to make it look horrible. He is finding stats to make it look like Jalen Green is not as good of a player as he actually is. And it's really just outlandish to me. It really is. It's a hard thing when you look at this and you see all the things that Jalen Green did, not just this season, but in his entire Rockets career. Man, I'm not trading this guy if I look at these stats. You're not going to acquire a better point guard in this system unless you're going for Devin Booker, which the Suns have already said he's probably off the table. If you want Kevin Durant, if you want Giannis, that's great. Do not put Jalen Green in that package. Do not. And Nick Wright, you're wrong. Jalen Green, maybe he had a bad first playoff series. But he is not Zach LaVine. He is much better than Zach LaVine. And for a guy who still had a 30-point game in the playoffs, the hate is outlandish. And don't get me wrong, I have pushed out their trades. But I have never once said that Jalen Green is a bad player and not a top scorer. If he is in a trade package, it is a trade package for Kevin Durant or Giannis Antetokounmpo. And those are top players in the league. And that's exactly how it should be. And that's pretty much all you have to put in that matter. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Do you believe Nick Wright is an idiot? Do you think he is dumb? Do you think he is stupid? Only pick one of those three options because anything else is absolutely outlandish. The guy's a Chiefs fan, for God's sake. He has no right to talk. His team always wins. Forget the fact that I do not like Nick Wright, and this just makes me hate him even more. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section, and you made it to the end of the video. Hit the subscribe button, and we'll see you next time here on Rockets Digest. I appreciate you guys. Pretty soon.